In this video we'll cover 3 basic shading techniques. I'll demonstrate the process. We'll talk about pros and cons. What is behind the purple skull? Behind the purple skull is linguo. I'll be referring constantly to 2 terms, value and form. So value is basically how light or dark something is on a scale from 1 to 9. A larger number would be too confusing and smaller number wouldn't be enough to cover the basic value grades. That's why we kinda keep it nice and tight at 9. The next word is form, and it is basically how round something is. I need the help from my beautiful assistant to show you what form is. So form is how round something is. For example, these wrinkles go around the form of Rex's toe. This stitch goes around the form of his tail. This line where his head twists goes around the form of his neck. Now the direction of a rubber band describes the form of his rib cage. Now the elastic band goes around the form of his shin. Now the elastic band goes around the form of his head, and you can see how it very accurately describes it, and you can see all these changes. So always try to imagine a rubber band going around something. Imagine how it would describe it and where it would break the direction, right? So here we can see clear breaks here, here, and here, and this describes the form of his back. Let's begin with our first technique, which is cross-hatching. Cross-hatching proved to be one of the most popular techniques to start with because it's much easier to understand it in the beginning. It's a series of lines placed next to each other with the same rhythm or spacing and then overlapped. So you want to go in small patches around the form, and those small patches should be rotated according to the way your forms turn. Now you can see me applying perpendicular lines to the previous layer of hatching, and now you can see me applying those lines in a diagonal direction, which gives you those nice crisp diamond shapes in between the lines. So the goal is to gain necessary value in a particular spot with those overlaps. The visual component, squares or diamonds, depends on your stylistic choice. Now let's apply this approach and render a sphere. I chose a sphere for these examples because sphere proved to be, over the centuries, the most valuable subject when it comes to establishing a strong drawing base. So I'm applying these small patches or blocks of cross-hatching, and I'm not curving the lines. The lines are straight. I'm simply rotating those blocks of cross-hatching, those bundles, around the form. And as you can see, it helps to describe that roundness of a sphere, and by adding more and more overlap in a particular area, I'm gaining darker value, and I separate the subject's lightest and darkest parts. I always recommend to start drawing by establishing strong shadows first, because then it's much easier to naturally and slowly and softly render those mid values and gradually bring that area between highlight and shadow together. The second technique is hatching, but with multiple layers. So you want to place those fast, rapid diagonal pencil strokes on top of each other, gaining darker values layer by layer. One of my favorite examples of perfect application of this technique is this Da Vinci's sketch. Here you can see how he masterfully applies hatchings in the shaded areas and allows the paper to do the rest of the work. This is a very nice technique. It gives your drawing cohesive, consistent look, adds dynamic due to those diagonal directions of the lines. You can use different angles, by the way, as long as they stay more or less in the same vein. The third technique is a combination of previous two. You want to make those tiny microscopic cross-hatchings, but in a way that they blend together and look like a hatching. It's hard to explain verbally, I'll demonstrate it in a close-up in a sec. So you want to go slowly with a fine sharpened pencil and just describe the form. Imagine the 3D form is on your page and you just scratching it with your pencil and revealing that volume. So this is a close-up, it's slightly under-rendered, but this is a quick demonstration with a 4B pencil. Let's go over the techniques one more time and talk pros and cons. So the pros of cross-hatching, it's easy to start with, it's a very understandable technique, and it allows you to stop and think and then continue from the same spot without breaking that softness, that gradient, because you will add another layer anyway on top of previous one, and those darker marks that appear will be hidden anyway. The cons, it's hard to erase your mistake and go over again because you break the length of the line and you need to be very precise when fixing it. Also, the texture is very obvious and quite monotonous, so it's hard to show texture differentiation with the same cross-hatching over and over again. Now the hatching is very soft, gives you nice soft transitions from value to value, but it's hard to describe form. It's easy to over flatten a sphere like I did in my example, especially if you work with a soft lead. And it's harder to fix the mistake because again you break the length of the line and that softness disappears, and you need to be super precise to cover the erased mark. The third technique has one major flaw: it takes time. Even after you get used to it, it still takes a lot of time, but the result is worth it. It delivers smooth transitions between values. You can stop and resume at any time. You can take a knitted eraser, erase the mistake, come back with a sharp point and continue seamlessly. Cross-hatching and hatching translate well to other mediums and tools like pen and ink, scratchboard maybe, or charcoal. And the third one prepares you well for oil painting or for certain stages of oil painting. And watercolor as well, and gouache, and really any painting mediums. Because if you learn how to translate values well with this technique in graphite, you can apply that skill to other mediums. In this video I haven't mentioned blending because I like to talk about it as a separate subject, because there are so many ways to do it, which I'll share in my next video. Take care for now.